you. Yeah. All down the hill. Yeah. That's really nice. The only time I've ever seen that kind of reception is usually from my wife. So it's a real ego booster. I want to say thanks to all the chairmen. Di, where are you? Thank you for pulling all this together with all your great. To that very fast driving boyfriend of yours, your significant other. Wow. Don't get in the green BMW. That thing. There's these circles, and we just kept going around them faster and faster. It was pretty cool. You all know how important New Hampshire is in American politics. You all know. You know everybody who runs for president, probably by first name. They probably come by your house and your church and your schools and everything else. I know it's a great honor to be asked to be here, so I just want to say thank you. This is the epicenter of everything that happens in politics in this country. And I want to return the favor and invite you all to come to CPAC. Yeah! We have all different kinds of people who come to CPAC. In full disclosure, obviously I'm a conservative. Sometimes people think I'm running a union. That's not right. It's a conservative union, not the other kind. A funny story, when Obama was president, he was having a big global climate change conference and asked people to testify. And no Republicans or conservatives were able to testify except me, because I thought I ran a union. So, sometimes the liberals really aren't that smart. Sometimes we get a little too scared. So please come to CPAC. It's the last 2 days of February, first 2 days of March. As I said, I'm a conservative. Mostly it's a conservative crowd, but there's moderates, independents. We invite some liberals. We always seem to step in it a little bit with some of our invitations. I'm sorry about that. That's just the way the world is these days, it seems like. But I come with a kind of a more serious message tonight. Sorry, I don't mean to be a downer, even after all the Greek dancing over here with the plates. I think we're in a tough time as a country. We're reading a lot about scandals. I'm old enough, turned 50 this year. I consider myself officially old. And think about the scandals of J. Edgar Hoover, of Senator McCarthy, Watergate. Really serious scandals. We're reading now about the scandals that happened throughout the 2016 election. We're reading about almost everything except the true scandal. And we know what that scandal is. Quote unquote, we're going to stop him, said the head of counterintelligence from the FBI. And not only did they say they were going to stop him, they then used our intelligence process. They polluted the FISA court system. Good judges, good people, honorable people, deceived and lied to about a dossier so that they could stop him. But that wasn't the only thing that happened in the Obama administration, as we all kind of sat back for 8 years in kind of a stupor, as we couldn't believe what was happening with our government. The Obama administration spied on reporters. Spied on reporters from the Associated Press, spied on reporters from Fox News. That's not so surprising. They talked about a Trump enemies list. The Obama administration used the IRS to go after their political opponents. Maybe some in this room, in every of the 50 states. Tea Party leaders, conservative leaders, basically anyone who disagreed with him. Years and years of being tortured and persecuted by the IRS with all the incumbent legal fees. By the way, nobody went to jail because no one ever did anything wrong. And then finally, this ridiculousness with FISA. Now, you can all listen and say, the deep state, and sometimes we sound like we're a little paranoid. I worked for President George W. Bush. That's where I met my lovely wife, Mercy. And those were the heady days after 9/11. Matter of fact, after 9/11, Mercy ran out of the White House in one direction, I ran out in another. And I remember talking to my sister on the phone, and it's kind of like I was in my 30s. I guess I thought I would be 30 forever. And all of a sudden, for a lot of us, we grew up that day. For me, I know I did. And student there after asked Mercy if she'd care to hang out with me for the rest of my life. And she, thank God, said yes. 5 girls later, 5 girls later I consume a lot of vodka, but it's going okay. But one of the things that we talked about in all those rooms in the West Wing and the Eisenhower office building, which many of you have been to, is we talked about the new powers that were given to the government to surveil our enemies. Remember, it was all about catching the enemies. And I remember being in a meeting with an eminent lawyer who I won't mention his name, because those meetings should really be off the record. I wish more people in this administration would follow that, by the way. Some things are off the record. And I said, what will happen if we give the government this power to stop terrorists, which I'm all in on? What will happen if we appoint men and women in positions that misuse that power and start using that power to go after Americans and to surveil Americans? And I was told over and over again that our founders wrestled with the whole idea of government power in the Federalist Papers, and they came up with a system. And we have that system, and we have to trust that virtuous men and women will be put in these positions, and they will follow the spirit and the letter of the law. My friends, we had an administration for 8 years that did the worst thing you could do. The worst thing isn't stealing our money. My God, they seem to all do that. Congressmen being indicted here and there for using their campaign funds, that seems to be a regular occurrence. Not good, but regular. But the idea of using the FISA courts, which were created to keep us safe, to quote-unquote stop him, and to lie to these judges by giving them phony information. It makes me so upset. Why are we spending our money and our time to examine Donald Trump's big and extravagant life before he was president? 10 years before he was president. But you start going through the wrongdoing. But Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, Jim Comey, that big tall criminal, McCain, Strzok, Page, Hillary Clinton. Remember what they said about Hillary Clinton? Well, yes, she shouldn't have deleted her emails. Yes, she shouldn't have destroyed those servers. But what did Jim Comey say? It's a tough call to determine whether or not you should actually prosecute her, as irresponsible as it was. Now, if you were to use that same language about Donald Trump's activities 10 years before he even thinks about running for president, let me tell you folks, if it's a close call, they want to put him in prison. If that's not obvious. It's like a coup before our eyes. And here's my question as a Republican. By the way, as I said, I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative first. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'll show you the best poll. Conservatives probably are the #1 group in the country. The best poll shows we're 40%. So guess what? All of us conservatives, we can't get it done alone. We have to pull in others. We have to pull in moderates. We have to pull in independents. Trump pulled in different kinds of voters. Trump even pulled in some of those old Reagan Democrats, those blue-collar Democrats. I'm for expanding the coalition, but here's the fight. Here's the question for the Republican Party. This is the question of what's going on now. Can we fight? Yeah. Are you sure? That makes me feel better. Because I think one of the things that Donald Trump shared or showed us is how serious the Democrats are about killing us, destroying us, knocking us down, killing us politically, by the way, let me be clear, but just doing everything they can to marginalize us. You know, I worked for President George W. Bush. Mrs. Patron remembers those days. You know, we came into office and we thought, well, we're just going to snuggle up next to those Democrats and they're going to realize that we're okay and we're in this together and we'll have compromises and it'll all be fine. 8 years later, he was a war criminal, a racist, a homophobe, an Islamophobe. 20% in the polls. Don Rumsfeld couldn't leave the country because he would get arrested. It ended there and it's never stopped being there. And I think it's sad and it's unfortunate, and I hope our country can get to a better place, but we're not going to get to that better place by not acknowledging how serious all of this is. I think about all my times working in Congress, working in the White House, and working in politics. It seems like this is what Republicans tend to do. Don't worry, we don't want to shut down the government. We only want 50% of what we want. We're going to let you have 50% of what you want. And we start there. Well, any business person in this room knows that's a stupid place to start. If you start asking for 50, you're going to end up with 20. And we'd end up with 18 and try to go spin it back at home by saying it's actually pretty good. So we didn't get 0, we got 18%. Trump says, I want 100%, you're going to pay for it. And then what is the... And the left says, how dare we say that they're going to pay for it? And they don't get the fact that that's how you start the conversation. And by the way, we have a NAFTA agreement, which I don't know if it's been announced or if it's soon to be announced, but it's right at the threshold. A NAFTA agreement for the first time in a generation that's actually focused on everything that needs to be done for America. So we can have free trade. We can have free trade that's cognizant that America can no longer afford to just simply give things away. We can't do it. It's not going to work. So I think about all of this strategy on asking for it all. The craziness of asking for everything we believe in. Everything. By the way, you know Obama got everything he campaigned on? Have you ever thought about that? I thought about this, it keeps me up at night. I'm like, that guy got everything. Because when he couldn't get it through Congress, remember, after he became president, we won every election after that. The Republican Party's never won so much. We've never had so many elected officials. And it was a lot of obviously the Obama agenda was repugnant. The only thing I can think of that Obama didn't do that he said he was going to do is he didn't close Gitmo. But he's so smart, he just let all the terrorists out. He closed it in his own way. So Gitmo stays, but the people are gone and they're off doing terrible things. He got everything. And I look at that and I say, we can do that. We can get what we say we want. Think about what the Republican Party believes in when blowhards like me come before you and talk. They say a lot of the same pablum. Do they believe it? Right? Do they believe it? Read our platform. How many Republicans want to implement that platform? I would tell you that not a lot. And that's one of our problems. I think whether you're pro-life, pro-choice, pro-gay marriage, pro-traditional marriage, whatever it is, as a party, we ought to look the American people in the eye and say, we stand for these things. And when we say it, damn it, we're going to do it. It's kind of an interesting anecdote, and I'm sure there's pro-life and pro-choice people here, but you know, this is mostly off the record. I see the camera here, so you know, we're going to go with it, okay? But it's a free society. But you know, when the budget deal came out, my wife relayed to me that the president said, "Did we get anything in the budget deal? The big omnibus deal? Did we get the wall funding? Well, no, not so much on the wall funding. Well, did we defund Planned Parenthood? Well, not really. We didn't really defund Planned Parenthood." So this is kind of what we face a lot, what you all have to face when you see what's going on in Washington, D.C. And what did Donald Trump say? He says, why didn't they at least defund Planned Parenthood? What he can't understand is that we've had these principles for my entire lifetime, 50 years. We are still talking about most of them. We're going to shutter the IRS and put a chain on the front door. No, we are not. We have to decide. If that's what we want to do, we could do it. But if we don't intend to do it, we ought to just quit saying it. And so, what has Trump been able to do with Republicans in Congress? We all know the lowest corporate tax rates, which made a huge impact, including on small business people, with the pass-through accounts. The president himself, with his executive powers, is going to defund Planned Parenthood, which to me is amazing. We see what's going on with North Korea. I love how the left is trying to make North Korea seem like it's a bad thing. We've never been to that place, right? The president and the North Korean leader have met. The North Korean leader and the South Korea leaders have met. And they say, well, the nuclear weapons are still there. We haven't made any progress. Let me tell you one thing I know. That little guy who runs North Korea is scared of Donald Trump. It's the truth. And the president knows he is. I've heard the president say, he'll say, you know, he thinks I might do crazy things, and I think that's good for us. And I'm like, amen, that's right. I hope our enemies worry that Donald Trump might do something in the middle of the night that could be really bad for them. The new NAFTA I talked about, which I feel very hopeful we'll be able to get done. How about NATO? You know the head of NATO called the president and said nobody has ever raised more money for NATO in the history of NATO than you. You realize that? You don't read this. The head of NATO loves President Trump because he actually said if we're going to say we're going to do 2%, hey guys, we're all going to do the 2%. And people are so used to in politics saying these words that mean nothing. And he said, no, it's going to mean something. The other thing is, you read about these trade controversies, and I'm a free trader, in full disclosure, I don't want to trade war. But Europe wants to deal with this. Because guess what? Europe knows that if we make a car, the very same car we could make in America, we make it in, instead of New Hampshire, we make it in Canada, they avoid a 10% levy when it goes to Europe. They know that stuff, right? So why do we agree to these deals in NAFTA? These are the types of things that can change, and Europe knows that they've been getting away with this concept of free trade, which I'm totally for, but I'm not for bastardizing the term for agreements that are not free trade. The American people have wisened up to this idea. Just because you call it something doesn't make it so. And as a party and as a movement, let's re-examine our words. Let's quit using all these words we've always used if they're hollow and they don't mean things to people. And we're a part of the idea that we're spinning something that's not truthful. We ought to stand for truth. It's kind of a crazy idea. And look at the courts. Something like 8% of the appeals courts will be Trump appointees. But we don't see anything like this. Mitch McConnell deserves a lot of credit for this. They have their eyes on the prize on how important the federal judiciary is. Now, for those of us who just might disagree on social issues but agree more on economic issues, do you know what judges get involved with today? It's not culture questions. It's every economic question under the sun. It was the Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision that said the carbon dioxide that's coming out of my mouth right now is as bad a pollutant as mercury flowing in the water. They decided that. It's a judge that comes in and tells the president, you cannot secure the border. It's a judge that tells the president, you must separate families because we don't want kids to be involved in the judicial process when an illegal family comes over here to America, and another judge in another jurisdiction who comes in and says you can't separate those families. The federal judiciary is out of control. And I would posit to you when the left tries to tell you that the selection of Brett Kavanaugh is all about Roe v. Wade, as pro-life as I am, that is not what it's about. It's about telling independent agencies in government they cannot do anything unless they can find the words in the Constitution. And they can't persecute small business people out of business. So I go back to this idea that has me a little fired up, and I'm going to actually be on Shannon Breen's, I got to talk to Juan Williams tonight. I might need to have a glass of He's a nice man, but oh my Lord. He's going to try to explain to me, his point of view is that what Donald Trump did 10 years ago with a payment about a bad story in the National Enquirer. I've never had a story written about me in the National Enquirer. I have to say, if I learned that that was going to happen, I would be scared. You never know what they're going to say. He's going to argue that all of this money from the special counsel and all this time, the fact that every moment of Donald Trump's presidency, every moment of a Republican majority in the House and Senate since 2016, has been spent on the top, have been consumed with the topic of Russian collusion. Russian collusion. I didn't say Russian canoodling. Collusion. By the way, collusion is a word, it means nothing. There's no legal term about what that meant. I kind of felt a lot of us were letting that ride because they're like, okay, what you're pretty much saying is Donald Trump's a traitor. That's what that means. What they're saying is that he cares more about Putin than he does our Constitution and all your votes. That's what they're saying. So after the end of all this, it's about what he did 10 years before he was president. And once again, I think about this, and we think of all the time we spent talking about Hillary Clinton. And we know it's a Clinton crime family, Clinton Incorporated. I mean, we're hoping that they, go away, but I think she might be back. No. I think too. I think, who